responsibility is your ability to respond to the situation. And I love that so much because the number one hallmark of self-defeating behavior is blaming other people for the problems in your life.
Dr. Daniel Amen, thank you for joining us on The Shift.
Thank you so much for having me, helping me spread this message about brain health.
We are so excited to have you. I've been a fan for a long time. To everyone listening, I'm here with Dr. Daniel Amen. He is a physician, an adult and child psychiatrist, the founder of Amen Clinics. You have probably seen him everywhere, honestly. On Instagram, he has over 2 million followers. On TikTok, he has over 2 million followers. And he is on a mission to change the way we think about brain health. And that's the synopsis that I gave. But let's hear it from you. What do you say to people as what you do, what your mission is?
So I have helped people have better brains and better lives, and then they pass it on to other people. My mission, I have a foundation, Change Your Brain Foundation, and the mission is to end the concept of mental illness by creating a revolution in brain health. I hate the term mental illness. It shames people, it's stigmatizing, and it's wrong. These are brain health issues. Call someone mental and you shame them, call them a brain and you elevate them. So I know we think about this wrong. You know, if you are depressed, you tell the doctor you're depressed. He gives you a medicine for depression, which works no better than placebo. And last year, there were 337 million prescriptions for antidepressants. So I affectionately call it a shit show, and we can do better.
I love that. Can you tell us a little bit? I know I watched your TED Talk and heard a little bit of your background on how you got here, but I think listeners would be really interested in knowing.
So I'm one of 7 children. I was in the middle and completely irrelevant growing up. And when I was 18, Vietnam was still going on, and I became an infantry medic where my love of medicine was born. But about a year into it, I realized I didn't like being shot at and got myself retrained as an X-ray technician. And that literally changed everything for me because our professors used to say, how do you know unless you look? And then in 1979, I'm a second-year medical student, and I get married, and 2 months later, my wife tried to kill herself. And I was completely devastated, horrified, took her to see a wonderful psychiatrist. And over time, I came to realize if he helped her, it wouldn't just help her, that ultimately it would help me, it would help our children, it would help our grandchildren. That psychiatry really has the ability to change generations of people. And I made that decision about 44 years ago, and I have loved it every day since. But I joined the only medical specialty that virtually never looks at the organ it treats. Think about that. And back in 1979, I knew it was wrong and I knew it would change. And I used to harass my psychiatric professors. I'm like, why aren't you looking at the brain? The brain is our organ, right? Nobody really argued about it even then. And they're like, that's the future. That's the future. And I'm not a very patient person. And I'm like, come on, I have patients today that want to kill themselves, that want to kill other people, that are so racked with anxiety they can't go to work. You really are just going to make diagnoses based on symptom clusters with no biological data. And so I always felt less than or handicapped than our other medical colleagues. And so when I got the opportunity to look at the brain first with a study called quantitative EEG, and then in 1991 with a study called brain SPECT imaging. It just changed the whole ballgame. These are not mental illnesses, they're brain illnesses. If you get your brain healthy, well, you're less anxious, you're less depressed. And that is our mission. And I'm so excited today. I mean, you're going to find this totally strange, but Ireland came out and they're going to start labeling alcohol with a cancer label, just like cigarettes. And why does that make me excited? Because alcohol is clearly bad for the brain. It is one of the biggest causes of psychiatric problems. And we've been lied to by the alcohol industry. Alcohol's a health food. That's a complete lie. And now the countries that produce a lot of alcohol are completely freaking out over what's going on in Ireland, because what's going to happen is the alcohol industry is going to be vulnerable to lawsuits like the tobacco industry. And it's part of my strategy to get people to love their brain, to stop doing things to feel better fast that never last, and to get on a program to love, nurture, support their brains.
I love that. Some accountability is coming in. I think that's incredible. I know that throughout your years of working on brain health and just as a physician, you have probably come across hundreds, thousands of pieces of good advice. But what we ask on this show is, what is the best piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
The best piece of advice I've ever got was don't try to change anything unless you have really thick skin. I think the best piece of advice I ever give is when you go to make any decision today, ask yourself, is this good for your brain? For it. And answer that question with information and love. Love of yourself, love of your family, love of the reason you're on the earth.
Do you have specific instances throughout your life as you started learning more about the brain where you recognize that your decisions were very much so not in line with what was helping your brain be healthy?
So when I first got scanned, it was 1991. It was the year I started using brain SPECT imaging. I scanned my mother the week before I got scanned, and at 60, she had a stunningly beautiful brain. And it was the healthiest brain I had ever seen, and remains one of the healthiest brains I've ever seen. And then the next week I scanned myself, and it was not awesome. And I am 37. I'm a double board certified psychiatrist already in 1991. I was the top neuroscience student in medical school. I didn't care about my own brain. I'd never really even thought about it. And when I saw it and I saw it wasn't healthy, I developed this concept called brain envy. I always say Freud was wrong. He was about 2.5 feet too low in the body and on the organ he cared most about. And I realized I was doing a lot of things that were bad for my brain. I mean, I don't drink. I've never smoked. But I was overweight. I wasn't sleeping. I thought I was special because I could get by on 4 hours of sleep a night. And then I realized I wasn't special. I was stupid. I wasn't really taking good care of my gums. And, one of the big strategies for brain health is floss. It's like, if your gums aren't healthy, you're more likely to have heart disease and brain disease. And so I wasn't really taking care of my teeth, and I was under chronic stress. And even though I was helping a lot of people manage their minds, I could have done a better job of managing my own. And it was that initial image that I went, oh, I have to get my brain healthy, because if my brain is healthy, then my mind is healthy. But so many people, they go to therapists trying to get their mind healthy with the hardware that's not working right. And so it becomes an exercise in futility. Like, I'm a huge fan of going for therapy once your brain is healthy. Go to therapy when your brain is not healthy. It's like, well, the hardware can't run the software program the therapist is trying to give you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Do you have any quotes or mantras or affirmations? That's kind of my thing, the thing of the show that people love to hear, but things that maybe you tell yourself or that you've taught patients to tell themselves that helps with their brain health or helps with their overall health.
Yeah, I don't have any tattoos yet, but I'm thinking about it. And if I did, these would be the tattoos.
Okay, let's hear it.
So the first one is, does it fit? Does my behavior fit what I want? So I have all of my patients do an exercise called the one-page miracle. On one piece of paper, write down what you want: relationships, work, money, physical, emotional, spiritual health. What do you want? Like with my wife, I want a kind, caring, loving, supportive, passionate relationship. Always want that. Don't always feel like that. I get these rude thoughts that come into my head, but I filter everything I say or do through, does it fit? If I say this, does it get me? Kind, caring, loving, supportive, passionate relationship. So that's the first one. The second one is, today is going to be a great day. I direct my mind to what I love. My poor children, I've made them watch the movie Pollyanna from 1961 over and over again. Or, now I have 5 grandchildren. I'm like, come on, we're watching Pollyanna. No, Grandpa, don't make us. Because she plays the glad game. Whatever situation you're in, what is there to be glad about in this situation? And so I'm a huge believer in positivity bias training. Train your brain to look for what's right rather than what's wrong, because that's not the brain many people inherit. When I go to bed at night, what went well today? So I say a prayer and then I go on a treasure hunt. I purposefully block out any negativity at that time. And I start at the beginning of my day looking at what were the coolest parts of my day. So I'm putting myself to bed looking for what's right, which then will, of course, help your dreams. You'll sleep better. And, that's sort of the most important strategy. If you want to feel better tomorrow, go to bed early tonight.
Those are all great. I think you have lots of options for good tattoos here. So I'm really excited to see which one you pick. I think those are beautiful, and I think anyone's life could change through following that advice. You hear a lot with, we call it, most popularly mental health, but I agree, brain health. I feel like a lot of people have this idea of like, well, I just am the way I am. Like, there's nothing that can change. What advice would you give to someone who says, like, this is just the way I am?
Well, if you like the way you are, we'll celebrate. If you don't, we're going to rehabilitate the way you are. I think too often people get stuck in ruts or in the pathways they have allowed their brain to build over time. And there's no question in my mind that you can be better quickly if you do the things that I suggest. The problem is, whenever you go to negativity, you're building the negative highway. And every time you go back there, you're strengthening it. I have a concept called ANTS, or automatic negative thoughts. So people who are anxious and depressed are often infested with what I call these ants. And if you want to get out of the anxiety or depression loops, you need to write 100 of those bad boys down and then talk back to them. And there's a very specific process I teach people in my office, in my books, on how to kill the ants. So whenever you feel sad or mad or nervous or out of control, write down what you're thinking. And then just ask yourself whether or not it's true, whether it's absolutely true. And there's a whole process. And my favorite part is take the thought, my wife never listens to me. I've had that thought. And write it down and then go, is it true? And, you might be mad at her and you go, yeah. Well, is it absolutely true? With 100% certainty, she's never listened to you. Well, it's a complete lie. I've written 18 national public television specials. She's listened to every script 2 or 3 times. So let's not lie to ourselves. Sometimes she listens. How does the thought make you feel? Lonely and isolated. How does it make me act? Irritable. So she'll be less likely to listen to me. And my favorite part of killing the ants is take the ant, the automatic negative thought, and just flip it to the opposite. She does listen to me. And then meditate on that. And when you know the truth of your thoughts, they just stop bothering. But that's something we should have taught second graders. Don't believe every stupid thing you think. But we never did. And I love Paul Simon's song Kodachrome because it starts off with, when I think back on all the crap I learned in high school, it's a wonder I can think at all. And high school wasn't built for the modern era. There's nothing in high school that teaches you to manage your mind, your relationships, your money even. We can do so much.
I love that. What I always find fascinating is that, fascinating and just a good point to me, is that you can't really do these things once. And I've heard a lot like the mind is a muscle, the brain is a muscle. How consistent do you really have to be with these things for them to actually start changing your brain chemistry?
Well, sort of like when people learn to shoot free throws in basketball. And initially, you suck. You're like terrible. It doesn't work, right? Nobody just knows how to do that. That you have to get skill. So get a good coach. So this would be a good therapist. Get a good coach. Work on your technique. And then if you want to have skill, you have to go practice. And I think spending a little bit of time every day on your brain and mental health doesn't take a lot of time, but often these are completely new skills for people. I mean, I was 28 in my psychiatric residency when a professor said, you don't have to believe every stupid thing you think. And I'm like, whoa. I mean, like time stood still for me because I believed every stupid thing I thought. And even though I'd already graduated from medical school. I suffered a lot because I wasn't managing my mind. And just like physical health is a daily practice, I mean, I really think about exercising and I think about what I put in my body, what I eat. I think about the supplements I take. Brain and mental health, they're exactly the same thing. Sort of need to have a plan and you need to work it every day. And people go, oh, that's so hard. And I'm like, being sick is hard. This, it just over time becomes a habit and it's not hard, right? And you basically are the sum of all the habits you have every day. And so, it's the same energy to have good habits as bad habits.
I love that. It's the same energy. You also, in one of your TED Talks, talked about gratitude being the best antidepressant. And I thought that was the best concept. Can you share a little bit about why gratitude is so important?
Well, I did this interesting study on Noelle Nelson's a psychologist who was writing a book. And she goes, I want to see my brain on gratitude. And I thought, well, that's such an interesting concept. And so she spent 20 minutes appreciating her life and being grateful for her life. And she has a stunningly beautiful brain. And then I'm like, you need to come back tomorrow and I want you to hate your life. I want you to think of all the things that make you sad and mad and afraid. And she's like, I don't want to do that because I'll feel bad. I'm like, come on, you have to suffer for science. And she came and it completely disrupted the function of her brain. It dropped her frontal lobes, the most human, thoughtful part of the brain. It dropped her left temporal lobe, often an area involved in violence. It dropped her cerebellum. So negativity actually makes you less coordinated. So if you're less coordinated, irritable, and you have poor supervision over yourself, negativity is just really a bad thing. And then there's research that if you just write down 3 things you're grateful for every day and you switch them up so it doesn't become routine, your level of happiness goes up in 3 weeks. So why not use that as an antidepressant? And very few people, when they go to the doctor and say, I'm depressed, the doctor, the easy thing to do to get you out of his office so he can get paid is to give you Lexapro or another of the antidepressants. It doesn't actually take that much time to go, hey, head to head against this antidepressant, walking like you're late for 45 minutes 4 times a week is equally effective. Or let me give you omega-3 fatty acids, head-to-head against antidepressants, equally effective. Or let me teach you not to believe every stupid thing you think, head-to-head against antidepressants, it's equally effective. Or let me give you the supplement spice saffron, 24 randomized controlled trials showing it's equally effective to antidepressants. No, we don't do that. Because for those other 4 things, you don't have to come back. When I give you a prescription, you're tied to me. You have to come back. And medicine has just changed in such an awful way here in the United States because it's about money and medicine. It's not about your health.
Yeah, I think that's a very pervasive idea and something that I hope changes very soon. Even I get prescriptions and it seems the strongest of medicines, the ones that should be the most expensive and the most regulated, are always the cheapest. And then the things that we really need, the new things that might not have as many side effects, those are the most expensive. It's just an interesting world that we live in, one that I hope will change and one that you are wonderfully changing. So thank you for that. I also, take off the doctor hat and the professional hat. What's the best piece of advice on your personal life, on your relationships that you've ever gotten?
So this actually came from my wife. She went to a seminar when she was young. She grew up with a lot of trauma. And she wrote about it in her book, The Relentless Courage of a Scared Child. And she goes to this seminar while she has cancer. And the seminar leader, who happened to be her uncle, said, how much responsibility do you want for this? And she was offended because she's like, it's cancer. It's not my fault. He said, I didn't ask you about blame. He said, responsibility is your ability to respond to the situation. How much responsibility do you want? And she said, I want 100% responsibility. And I love that so much because the number one hallmark of self-defeating behavior is blaming other people for the problems in your life. Number one, hallmark. When I have a patient do that, one, I know they're going to be harder for me. And two, that's the first thing I work on. You know, he made me do this or that. It's like, no, let's change that to I allowed him to make me feel this or that. And so if I'm 100% responsible for my life, then if I'm struggling with one of my children, all right, what is it I can do today to make this better? Or if I'm struggling with my wife, what is it I can do today to make this better? And when you anchor yourself in personal power, because when you blame other people for how your life is turning out, you're a victim and you can't change anything. And personal power is so important to me. Yes, things are complicated. Yes, it might have to do with a head injury in the past or something along those lines. But once you get your brain right, then I want to be responsible for how my life turns out.
I could not love that more. I don't know if you've seen this, but especially on my quote page, I share a lot of different messages. And anytime I feel like I share a message that kind of gets at that personal responsibility, and maybe sometimes accepting, like, I might be the problem here, people hate it. They just hate it. And I don't know if you've seen that kind of be a hallmark of, I'm a millennial. Gen X, I think, is sometimes even worse about it. Maybe not. But it just seems like our generation doesn't want to take that responsibility. We always want it to be someone else's fault.
No, we're in a victimhood society at the moment. But, you know, on the internet, every idiot has a voice. Your platform wouldn't be growing if people didn't appreciate you. One of the things, I don't know if you've seen this, that some of my haters aren't even human. They have hater bots. And like every time I do an Instagram live, it's like, Dr. Amon's a scam. And initially that would sort of hurt my feelings
Yeah.
because I love what I do. What I do is really important. And so I would like write down the name of that person and I'd go and they'd have 0 followers. And I'm like, oh, they're a bot. And so I think social media companies do that in part, or they don't police it enough, in part because they know negativity brings them more eyeballs. And
Yeah.
so I am very suspicious. Because if you're not paying for a product like Facebook or Instagram or even TikTok, if you're not paying for a product, you are the product. You know, these subtle changes in your behavior and your thoughts and how you spend your money. And, you know, if anybody's pushing against personal responsibility, you got to ask why. Because being a victim is not going to enhance their lives or the lives of the people they're in contact with.
Yeah. It's just
So
interesting
I would
because
encourage you to stay the course because this victim mindset is clearly not helping.
yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, mental illness and brain illness, I feel like, is increasing at a rapid rate. And at the same time, there's this idea that we really have no ownership on our lives, and everything that happens to us is a result of someone else doing something to us. And it makes me wonder if there's a bigger correlation than we think, if how our world would change if maybe all of us just said, I'm responsible for what my life is right now.
It would be better. I know my life is better when I take ownership. And I totally could be a victim. Like I'm a middle child. I could be a victim of that. And I think for many years, I had that mindset of I knew I wasn't special because I'm the second son in a Lebanese family. And in a Lebanese family, the older son is special. He goes into the family business. And I always knew I was second. But what I didn't realize that I've come to so appreciate is I could have done anything I wanted because I didn't have those expectations. And so it's all how you frame it, right? If you frame yourself as a victim, you become powerless. And that's not a good look.
Yeah. Yeah. Taking responsibility is how we take our power back. I love that. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I knew it would be. Your content is not only educational, but it is changing lives quite literally. So thank you so much. I want everyone to know how they can follow you, how they can support your work. What should we subscribe to?
Well, I have a brand new book, Change Your Brain Every Day.
Amazing.
It's 366 short essays on the most important things I've ever said. Totally fits in a TikTok world.
Love it.
Where, it's 2 or 3 minutes a day learning to love and care for your brain. They can learn about our clinical work. I have 11 clinics across the United States at Amen, like the last word in a prayer, clinics.com, amenclinics.com, or follow me on TikTok at Doc Amen or Instagram at Doc_Amen. And we'll give you great brain nutrition every day.
I love it. If you like my page and you like quotes and you're listening from that, then his work falls just in line with mine. It is inspirational and a little bit more scientific. So you will highly enjoy it, I promise you. Dr. Daniel Amen, thank you so much for joining us. We are so lucky to be able to hear from you.
Thank you so much. What a joy to be with you.
This was amazing. And to all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to The Shift.